The rain had been falling all morning, heavy and unrelenting, soaking the cracked wooden steps that led up to her front door. A wheelchair sat at the base of the porch, wheels slick with mud, and in that moment, it looked more like a cage than a source of freedom. Inside the chair was Emma, a woman whose life had been rewritten in a single tragic accident months ago. She sat there, staring at those steps that mocked her daily, tears welling in her eyes as she realized once again that her independence had been stolen. Each day she faced those steps, and each day, they seemed taller, darker, and more impossible than the last. Before we move forward, I'd like to pause here and say this: if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of simple actions that change lives, then please like this video, share it, comment below, and subscribe to the channel Kindness. Your support spreads these stories of humanity further than you can imagine. Emma had once been the kind of person who never needed anyone's help. She was a teacher, full of energy, always rushing between her classroom and home, laughing with her students, cooking dinners with friends, and living her days with purpose. But the accident, a car that ran a red light one winter evening, had stolen her ability to walk. The spinal injury had confined her to a wheelchair, and though she had survived, her world had become smaller, more confined, more filled with shadows. The house she lived in was old and modest, with steps that had once been nothing but a casual part of life. Now they were a cruel reminder of everything she had lost. Each time she left or returned, she relied on her brother or neighbors to lift her chair, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with a stumble that made her feel helpless. She hated it. The frustration was not just physical, it gnawed at her dignity, her pride, her sense of being whole. She longed to roll out on her own, to feel the fresh air without waiting for someone's hands to carry her. Her neighbors noticed her struggle. Some pitied her, some whispered about how sad it was to see such a vibrant woman reduced to this state. Yet, while many sympathized, few acted. That is until Daniel came into the picture. Daniel was not family. He wasn't a close friend either. He was just a man who lived 2 streets over, someone who passed by her house occasionally when walking his dog. He was in his late 40s, an unassuming man with calloused hands and tired eyes, the kind of man people might overlook. But Daniel had something rare, a heart tuned to the quiet cries of others. One afternoon, as he passed by Emma's home, he saw her struggling again. Her brother wasn't around that day, and she had been trying to edge her chair up the first step with nothing but sheer willpower. The chair tipped dangerously, and Daniel rushed over just in time to steady it. He could see the tears streaming down her face, not just from fear but from exhaustion, from the humiliation of being trapped by her own home. That moment etched itself into Daniel's soul. He went home that night, unable to shake off the image of her sitting helpless at the bottom of her own porch. He tossed and turned in bed, thinking about it, until finally he sat up, rubbed his face, and whispered to himself, "This isn't right. She deserves better." The next morning, while the world was still waking up, Daniel went to a local hardware store. He bought planks of sturdy wood, nails, screws, a hammer, a drill, and everything else he thought he would need. He didn't ask Emma if she wanted help. He didn't wait for permission. He knew she might refuse out of pride, and he also knew sometimes people needed kindness most when they couldn't bring themselves to ask for it. By 8 a.m., he was at her front yard, pulling tools from the back of his old pickup truck. Emma, awakened by the noise, peeked out the window and was startled to see him working, measuring the steps, laying down wood, marking angles with chalk. She rolled her wheelchair onto the porch and called down, asking what he was doing. He looked up at her with a gentle smile, sweat already forming on his brow despite the cool morning air, and said simply, "Building you a ramp." Her first instinct was to protest. She wanted to tell him no, that she didn't need charity, that she didn't want to be someone's project. But the determination in his eyes silenced her. He wasn't pitying her. He was respecting her need for independence, and offering a solution. Slowly, Emma's resistance melted into quiet gratitude. The hours stretched into the day. Daniel worked tirelessly, his hammer striking rhythmically, sawdust rising in little clouds as he cut through wood. Neighbors began to gather, curious about the noise. Some offered lemonade, others brought sandwiches, a few even picked up tools to help. What began as one man's mission slowly turned into a small community effort. People who had only ever watched from a distance were now contributing, sweating, laughing, and working together for Emma. Emma sat on the porch, watching in awe as the ramp began to take shape. Each plank laid down was not just wood, it was hope. With every nail hammered in, she felt the walls of her confinement breaking down. It wasn't just about mobility. It was about dignity, freedom, and being seen. By late afternoon, the ramp was nearly finished. Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead, his shirt damp, his hands blistered, but his spirit unbroken. He stepped back, looked at the work, and smiled. The ramp stretched gracefully from Emma's porch down to the sidewalk, sturdy and wide, ready to carry her into a new chapter. The moment of truth arrived. Emma wheeled herself forward, her heart pounding. The crowd of neighbors fell silent, watching. She reached the edge of the ramp, took a breath, and pushed forward. The wheels rolled smoothly, the chair gliding down as if it belonged there all along. When she reached the bottom and looked back up, tears streamed down her cheeks. She wasn't trapped anymore. She looked at Daniel, her voice trembling as she whispered, "You have no idea what this means to me." And he, with quiet humility, replied, "I think I do." That night, after the crowd dispersed and silence returned to the street, Emma rolled down her ramp once more. She wheeled herself into the cool evening air, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors she hadn't noticed in so long. For the first time since her accident, she felt like herself again, not a prisoner of her circumstances, but a woman with a life to live. Daniel returned home exhausted, but with a heart lighter than it had been in years. He knew he hadn't just built a ramp, he had built a bridge back to Emma's freedom. And maybe, in a world where people often look away, that simple act of kindness was exactly what humanity needed more of. To everyone watching this right now, I want to ask something from the bottom of my heart. If this story touched you, if it made you believe once more in the goodness of people, then please like this video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to Kindness. These stories are more than words, they are reminders that even small actions can rewrite lives. And before we end, here's a special request: drop a comment below and tell us, what's the kindest act you've ever witnessed or experienced? Your words might inspire someone else to do the same. Because in the end, it's not about grand gestures or heroic feats. Sometimes, it's just about a man who decided that one day was enough to change a life forever.